Hi, my name is Mahyar, and in this multi-part tutorial we will model and render a Google Pixel phone from start to finish in Blender. Check out the YouTube playlist and reference files in the description below. Let's get started. In order to preview our material that we are creating, we need a lighting setup. For a faster lighting setup, I will use HDRI texture. One of the famous resources is Polyhaven. This is the HDRI texture I'm using for previewing my material. I will press N to close this. I will add vertical split here and use my shader editor here. I go to the world settings, create a image texture input. Don't forget to go to preferences and add-ons, search for Node Wrangler and make sure it is enabled. After enabling the Node Wrangler, you can select the background and press Ctrl T. Open the texture you have downloaded. Now, as you can see, we have the environment loading because we don't have any material yet. The phone is rendering white. We can later change the rotation of the environment to see how our material reacts to the light. Now I go to the object mode. I start by setting materials for our frame. I set our render engine to cycles for a more realistic result and select the frame, add a new material. I rename it to frame. I make the metallic 1, set the color to 5D, 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 and set the roughness to 0.15. Now I can go to the world and rotate the environment. I want to have a lighting here. I go back to the object mode and select the back panel. For the back panel part, we have two sets of materials here. One shiny material for the Google logo and one matte material for the rest of the back panel. We have to handle this by a black and white map that we create on a 2D software like Photoshop or Figma, because we don't have any mesh to separate the Google logo from the rest of the back panel. I go to the Figma for creating this map. Before that, I have to go to the UV editing mode and select all of the vertices of this back panel mesh. I have unwrapped its UV map before. I just have to export UV layout for importing that into Figma. I go to the Figma and Ctrl-Shift-K or import image. Select the UV. As you can see, its resolution is 1K. I frame selection or Ctrl-Alt-G. Now I have a frame that's inside it. This is the UV map that I have imported. Now I need to import the back image of the Google Pixel. And I want to scale it to match the inner line with the outer line of this UV. First, I need to make its opacity 50% so that I can see what's beneath it. Now the Google logo should be placed here. For importing Google logo vector that has the desired quality, I have to use a SVG file. I can use it by importing it from BrandFetch, a plugin in Figma that can load up logos for you. Search Google and don't forget to import the SVG one. Now the SVG that I have imported has too many parts that are masked into the desired Google SVG outline. I have to use this vector for our UV map. I press enter, select all of these vertices, Ctrl C to copy it, and select the frame, Ctrl V to paste it. I will make it white and make the background of the frame black. Plus 0, 0, 0. Now I select it, press 5 to make the opacity 50%, scale it down to match the reference. I think it's good. Press 0 to turn the opacity back to 100. Now we can safely press Ctrl and select these images inside the frame and only export this frame. I want the frame to be 4K resolution, so in the export, in the bottom right, I select plus and select 4 to make the export 4K. Export frame, go to the layout, select the back panel. For the matte part of the material, I press plus and I rename it to back matte. I set its color to pure black and I will change the roughness to something like 0.45. I want to have a kind of noisy texture to mimic its sandblast material. I can use noise texture, Shift A, texture, noise texture. I search for bump and connect its height to the factor here and connect it to the normal. As you can see, it's too much large. I increase the scale to 400 to make it smaller. I will change the strength to 0.01 just to have a slight sandblast. Now we need to import our texture map for masking out the Google logo here. I want to create a glossy material for the Google logo part. I will insert glossy BSDF shader and change the color to 1A1A1A. I connect it to the final output to see the result. I change the roughness to 0.1. Now we have a shiny material that we can use for Google logo. Maybe 0.05. I want to make it more shiny. Now we need to mix these shaders together. I add a mix shader. I connect the Google logo to the second one and the matte material to first one. Now we need to connect our image texture to the factor here. I search for image texture. I press Ctrl T to using UV for its vector. I open the map that we have exported using Figma. Open it and connect it to the factor here. Now connect the output to surface. As you can see, we have now the Google logo here. Now I forgot to create the antenna materials here, the antenna cuts. I select the frame here, add a new slot, and rename it to create a material and rename it to antenna. I first need to select the antenna part. I go to the solid mode and select the parts I want to be antenna. Press L since they are detached. No antenna on the left part of the phone. I'm seeing an antenna here. So let me move this. Yeah, we have an antenna here. So I have to add a cut. Go to the left view, GZ. And another cut here. Press V, right click, and V, right click. We have to reselect all again. Now we can select this one and press assign. Now we can go to render view and edit the antenna material. I keep the roughness 0.5 and change the color to 35353, or maybe darker. Now for the camera frame, I want to use two sets of materials. The material of the rail around the camera island is shiny metal like the phone frame, but the surface parallel to the back of the phone is somehow matte. I set its material to the one we used for frame, but I select the back surface here, add a new slot, and create new material, make it metallic, cam frame matte, go to the render mode, and I assign it to this material. Now I need to make it darker. I decrease the roughness to 0.35. For hiding the background from distracting us, we can go to the render tab in the film. We can make it transparent. But if we want to see the Blender background, the Blender gray background, we can go to the world section, go to the array visibility and deselect the camera. That way we can see the Blender environment instead of the texture map. Now I continue with this shiny plastic material here. Select this one. It's new. I rename it to LiDAR. I don't know if it's really LiDAR or not. I set it to 0.1 and make it fully black. I think this one is a little too light. I want to the back matte color, I want to make its specular lower. I don't know if it's physically true or not, but it gives a better appearance to it. I make it 0.2. I go for the glass and export its UV layout. I select all by pressing A, UV, export UV layout. I rename it to the camera glass is good. I go to Figma and import that image. I temporarily rotate it 90 degrees, and for exporting I rotate it back. I have to import the reference image again. I want to make the surface transparent only in the camera part and this part, but I want to make it a black shiny material in all other places. I Control X and frame this selection, and Control V, press 5 to set the opacity to 50%. I can hold down the control button and crop the image to move it more easily. Another approach can be taking a screenshot from our actual mesh to make sure we match the final result. I can go to the solid mode and go to the back view, hide the reference selection. I can go to the wireframe mode, can hide this one, and I can simply take a screenshot. I can go back to Figma and Control V, press 5. As you can see, it matches with the reference image, so I can delete it. Now I press O to create circle. In order to make it perfect circle, hold down the Shift, press 5. Don't forget to press Shift when resizing, and press Alt Shift to scale it proportionally. Another one for this one. I use arrow keys. I scale it down to the edge of the lens and scale it up again to make sure it's perfectly centered. I press R to create rectangle. It's 5. And press Alt to increase its size. I can increase the radius here by sliding here. I select all of this and press align vertically center. Holding down Alt to duplicate this one and press Alt Shift and resize it here. Now we can hide this one and this one. Hold Control to select the UV image and hide that too. Now we have our mask map. Select all of this and press 0 to turn their opacity back to 100 and press plus here and make it pure black. Now we have to rotate it back, holding down Shift to be precise. I press Ctrl R to rename it to camera glass. Export 4X. I come back to Blender. Sometimes I can't find the nodes that I create. That time I have to search for them, but in this case I haven't created any material yet. I go back to solid mode. I can now unhide the camera glass, select the camera glass and go back to render mode. We only need one slot for this because we are handling the multiple material mode with mask image like what we did in the back panel. I create new material and rename it to camera glass. I place a glass BSDF and connect it to surface output, a principal BSDF. connect it here, make it pure black, and shiny. Now we can connect it to a mix shader. Texture, image texture. Press Ctrl T, open our map, and connect it to the factor. I create camera plane material and create a rough somehow 0.8 fully black, and decrease its specular to 0.05. I first start shading the plastic part of the rings. I rename it to camera ring with the black material. .25. I can unhide the camera glass. I think it's too shiny. I will make it more rough and decrease the specular. I will add another material slot and rename it to camera lens. Create 0.05 rough. Make it somehow purplish. And tab into edit mode, press L, and assign these parts. I think the specular should have color. As you have seen on the real cameras, the light that is reflecting on the camera is somehow colored. Let's unhide the camera glass. The camera glass is not what I like. Let me change the lighting rotation. I go to the object mode. I will change the camera plane material specular level to something lighter, and go to the lens setting, go to the camera glass material, change the IOR to 1 to have no refraction. I think the black parts should only be applied to inner layer of the camera glass, not the outer one. The outer should be a plain glass. So I will create a new slot. I create a new material, shader glass BSDF with IOR 1, select it, connect it to the surface, and select this mesh, press slash, go to the left view, go to the shading mode, go to the solid mode, press Alt Z, and select the Go to the left. I think I have to select this part. That's correct. I have to assign this once to this material. Slash again and go back to render mode. I think we're good. Maybe the camera lens is too saturated color. I think it's better now. And more bluish. I'll rename it to glass. As more underpasses will pass, the inside of the camera will be more light. I want to change the specular for the camera ring to something lighter. Make it more rough. That's too much. Make it less rough. Okay. For the USB Type-C, we have some surfaces around the phone's frame that we want just to have black surface because they're not so visible to waste our time with. I go to the solid mode. I now selected the frame. I will add a slot for holes and create a fully black material. Keep this as it is and select the surfaces you want to be fully black. I assign. Control Z, I deselect this one and assign. Click middle mouse, I slide this. This surface press 3 and assign this one. I think I assign this one wrongly. This one here. Assign. Control Alt select. Sign. Control Alt select. Sign. Control plus. Sign. Go back to render view. Don't forget to save your file. I can decrease the specular to make it more dark. Okay, now I want to create the material for the screen. I go to the object mode and create new material. As you can see, we see a line here because this vertex is not connected to any other vertex from this surface. We can select this one and this one, press M at last to merge it down. We press A to select all, go to the UV editing tab. We can see that our UV map is corrupted here. Press U and Q projection. Now we press 3 to go to surface mode. Press A to select all. Hold down Shift and Shift L to deselect the main screen. Now we can see the ERS speaker and the bezels are projected here. We don't need any maps for them, so we move them to the side and scale them down. The main part is here. We can select these. We can deselect these vertices. I can create a new material slot on the go. Selfie glass. Press tab to go to edit mode and assign that to selfie glass. And I select these vertices. Press Ctrl plus. No, it doesn't work like that. I can select these ones. Now we have successfully selected the screen part of the front panel. I press Ctrl 3 to go to surface mode. Press Ctrl minus to leave the room for the bezels. Now I can simply select this for faces. Now I can create a new material slot for the screen. And assign these to material. The first slot is a bezel. For the bezel part, I create a shiny black material. And for this ERS speaker part, I can create another slot. Press 3. Now I'm in the surface mode, and I can assign that to this slot and select holes and give material of the holes to this part too. For the screen part, I have downloaded the Google Pixel official wallpaper for the Pixel 9 Pro XL Black. Press Shift A and add an emission shader. Press Shift A, texture, image texture. I can change the emission strength to, for example, 1.5. And for selfie glass, I can simply add a glass shader. I can make it a little bit darker. Now I can hide the screen. And for the selfie camera part, I can first use camera ring material, and for the lens part, I press L, create new slot, assign it, and use camera lens material for it. Unhide the screen. Now I want to go to the flash. For the flash glass, I can use selfie glass and hide the mesh. For the actual flash part, I go to the UV editing. As you can see, I have unwrapped it before. I have used Figma for this. I have created a flash image by cropping the real pixel font. I have cropped this part and placed in a square texture, and I can now import it in Blender. I search for brightness. I can decrease the brightness to -0.2 to make it more clear. The flash glass doesn't work here because I have made it dark, the selfie glass. I duplicate it and rename it to flash glass. Make it white and a little bit rough. Now when we want to make the flashlight on, we can give it emission like this. I think now we are good to go for rendering our scene. I have to create a camera and set up composition for a perfect angle. Then I can review the material properties. Maybe I have to change, for example, brightness and roughness in some places. Now I forgot to turn on cycles in GPU mode. If you have an RTX GPU, might be better to go to GPU compute. It is so faster. Now I want to disable HDRI lighting to add up my own area lights from Blender. I add a horizontal split here. Allocate one of them to 3D viewport. In this view, I disable this one so that I don't see any grid. I add an area light here. I move it up. I add a camera too. Go to the camera and make sure it is locked so that when I move in this viewport, the camera moves with me. Press GZ. I press N. I'm making it round, 135. I select the camera and make the focal length 120 millimeters. It's a good number for product visualization. I press G, Z twice to move along the camera normal. I increase the area light hover. I disable the lock here so that when I want to change anything in the scene, the camera doesn't change its position and rotation. I want to make a copy of my phone and rotate it 180 degrees so that two phones stay parallel together, one showing the front screen and another showing the back panel. Make sure that you unhide the frame guide, select the parent empty, and select hierarchy so that all of the objects get selected. We can shift the Y, select the parent empty, RZ180. Now we can select both empties, hold down the dot and set it to individual origins, RX 30 degrees. We can bring it closer to the phone, select both of them and try to place them centered. Now I select the camera, I press GZ, you know what, instead of rotating the camera, we can rotate the phone and add our lighting based on the camera. Because if the camera is aligned to the Y-axis, all other lights can be controlled faster and easier. I select both of the phones, bounding box center, RZ45, no, RZ minus 45. Now we can set the pivot to 3D cursor, make sure the cursor is in the world origin, and now we can hold down the control and press N. We can see that it is round. I have rotated the phone wrongly. I think this is good. Press GZ twice. I want to go to the camera view. GY twice. Select the camera, press GZ twice. Now we can hide the guide frame mesh. Make sure the camera is selected. Go to the camera, viewport display, and maximize this. Now I disable the lock here, go outside the camera view. Here is our camera pointing down. I will add a rim light parallel to the camera normal. Press Shift D, right click, make sure the pivot point is 3D cursor, RX, hold down the control. Now we have a rim light around our object. Press GY. Can decrease its size. Change the power. I decrease the top light height. Now it's showing up our problems with our materials. For example, the camera glass, it's too rough. The cut here should be more visible. So we go to the camera glass slide, decrease its lightness to 0.01, and I think we can make the glass a little bit darker so that the details won't be so visible. The frame should be a little bit less rough. Now when I duplicate this and rotate, Another problem is we can't see any reflection on this screen. It's like it's too matte. Maybe we should use a principled BSDF shader instead of emission one, so that we can control its roughness. We can decrease its specular so that it won't reflect that much of white. I will do the same for the bezel. And also for the selfie glass. As you can see, we can control the specular here. I should use the principled shader here. I increase the transmission to set it transparent and decrease the specular. I decrease the roughness to 1. Change the alpha. I don't know if what I'm doing is wrong or right, but I'm just doing guesswork here. I changed the roughness for the back panel. I want the line light here. Later I will need a gradient plane here at the left of these two phones, so that we have a gradient reflection on the frame. Now I'm just playing with the materials. For example, the antenna. Can be darker a little bit. Or the Google logo. Can be less rough. Okay, if you are seeing the lights in your screen, just make sure that when you select a light, in the object menu, in the visibility, the camera is turned off. Otherwise, you have a screen like this. Now I'm trying to make the materials better. For the glass part, I will create a principled BSDF. Make the specular tint black and make a transmission 1. Make the roughness 0.01 and give it a bluish color. Decrease the saturation. Make the IOR 0.45. Make the IOR 145. Now I can copy this node, go to the camera glass, paste it here and use it as the glass BSDF here. I also can copy it and use it as the selfie glass too. Now it's time to add a gradient light at the left of the phone to have the professional look we see on, for example, iPhones. Shift D, right click, RZ, hold down the control. This is a plain white light. I want to create gradient so that at the bottom of the image we have a somehow white light, and at the top when we reach the corner of the phone the light turns off. To do that I will select use nodes. I will create a gradient texture here. Press Ctrl T. Use the object as vector and connect this one to color ramp. And connect it to the color. We can use ease mode. I think linear is better. I select the camera, press GZ twice to zoom in and GZ to move it. Maybe we can decrease the saturation here to 0.3. To decrease the blueness, I select the frame. Roughness is good. I select the light. Select ease. I rotate the light. I don't like this white edges here. I rotate the light. Now you can see we have some black edges appear. This is so much better. Now it's looking good. Change the power. Not much difference. I think we are good to render the image. Now I want to add depth of field to the camera. First, I need to add an empty to the scene. I add a sphere empty, decrease its size. Now when we move the empty, the focus changed. Now I go to the camera. I play with this number. Starting to move this to the camera location. We can see before and after. Now we are going to cycle settings, render settings, and decrease the max samples. Maybe 800 is enough. I'll keep the settings as is, and I press render. I press escape. As you see, I forgot to hide the objects from being rendered. For example, the frames. Just check any object that is hidden from the scene should be hidden from being rendered. I press render again. I think the depth of field has made this part so blurry. I make this resolution 200%. Select the camera and disable the depth of field to see if it results any better. It is rendering region. I don't know why. I press escape. I don't know if it's a bug or is it my mistake, but when I set it back to 100%, the image render is becoming normal and there is no region rendering. I think not using depth of field results a better render in this scenario because our phone is angled and using depth of field blurs a big portion of our phone. Thank you guys for watching this tutorial, and don't forget to like and subscribe this channel for more tutorials later.